I cannot cure your thirst, because you who is seeking the truth does not admit the truth. I cannot cure your thirst, because the truth that you expect isn't there. But I still want to cure your thirst, because I'm the one who threw you out in the desert. It's been a little over a year since the last installment of this series, and naturally some things have changed. Firstly, whatever format I said I'd do in the last part, totally thrown out the window. It's taken me 6 months to get one goddamn video out. I'm going to do whatever I see fit. However, much more importantly, as well as a bit of a shock at the time, Higurashi's actually made a small resurgence in the past couple of months. There was a show earlier this year called Last Period. Nothing to talk home about, nothing special, wasn't even on my radar. Until they had a crossover with the cast of When They Cry. Well, I say crossover, the main characters appear in it, ever so briefly, and even then only Rika has a speaking role. Mainly because her Japanese voice actress also voices one of the characters on Last Period. Even then, they don't really do much. I think they're meant to be bad guys for the series. It's weird. I don't know. I should probably watch it, but I probably won't. While I haven't seen the show, I have seen the clips that the characters appear in. And holy crap, I had the goofiest smile on my face. Not only are the character designs freaking adorable, although I have no idea what's up with Keiichi's eyes here, but the references to the Higurashi franchise didn't go unnoticed, and it was frankly just nice to see these characters again. We haven't seen these guys in animation since the Outbreak OVA in late 2013, and I think this new cutesy art style really suits them. If the people at Studio Dean still have the animation rights and want to make a slice-of-life story, something akin to the disappearance of Nagato Yuki-chan, then I'd totally be on board. Then maybe Funimation could get the dubbing rights, and maybe redub the whole series. That'd be nice. I can already hear Monica Riol as Rena. Anyway, my point is, seeing the gang again really made me happy and excited at the prospect of new things related to When They Cry. It was also around about this time that I decided to return to that little pet project of mine. And after months, and months, and months of back-to-back problems, I am very proud to once again say, welcome, my friends, to Higurashi, the anime retrospective. The Cotton Drifting Arc. I want to start by correcting some mistakes. Believe it or not, I am merely human. And I can't even do that right most of the time. I was very hard set in having the first retrospective released when it was, meaning it wasn't quite to as high of a standard as I would have liked. Facts weren't checked, and some information was wrong. Firstly, and arguably most embarrassingly, I said the original visual novels had voice acting in them. Which is completely wrong. It's very rare for visual novels to have voice acting, and I don't know where I got this idea from. Kinda makes it more idiotic that I had to source the game footage and could easily have checked there. Some would argue that, since Higurashi started off as a visual novel, that I should have mentioned that point sooner. But considering that this is the anime retrospective, I think it's not worth mentioning unless it's completely necessary. The other major problem concerns Keiichi. Because of course it does. I said that, in the visual novels, Keiichi was left as a blank slate in order for the player to immerse themselves in the game. As a result, he was left with little to no personality in the adaptation to television. As it turns out, he's actually got a lot of character. He's a bit of a cocky prick, but ultimately a nice guy. He's very aware of the harem-esque situation he finds himself in and rolls with it, teasing Rena and Mio in particular. In the anime, it's surprisingly toned down, at least in this series. For now. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but the first episode of Season 4 entirely consists of the male cast over-sexualizing the entire female cast. I realise that there are cultural differences and all, but damn Japan. I stand by my opinion that Keiichi can be a bit bland in the show. After all, as stated in the introduction video, these are my opinions and perceptions of the dubbed version of the show. Although, judging by the difference in views between the introduction and the first arc, a lot of people might not be aware of that. I might have to retroactively go back and put numberings on these things. Even though you would have thought that introduction would have been a big enough hint. In any case, let's crack on with the second arc. Upon my first viewing, I watched the first 4 episodes back to back, not even realising that they encompassed an arc. It's actually something I've continued to do to this day. I'm unable to watch just a single episode on its own without completing an arc. Considering the arcs roughly comprise of about 4 episodes at 22 minutes apiece, it makes for a nifty little hour-and-a-half long movie experience and makes for a pleasant evening. An evening full of existential crises, but a good evening all around. That being said, I've never overanalyzed them before, so in doing this and the last episode, I've already had an interesting experience myself. In today's case, a very interesting new perspective and a little bit eye-opening. This isn't even the arc I outrightly dislike, but considering the similarities between that arc and this, well, it might just be better to get on with it. People will remember that the first arc ended with Keiichi killing Rena and Mio, suspecting they were behind or at least had a hand in the events around Oyashiro's curse, with Keiichi himself clawing out his own throat after being injected with a needle that drove him to kill himself. I mean, goddamn, very ballsy move, killing off 3 of your 5 main cast members in the first round. Sure, Rika and Satoko didn't have that much development, but they'll probably be the main characters of this one. I've been screaming! What's going on? If anyone thought getting beaten with a baseball bat was a harsh introduction, they clearly did not get past the first episode. But yeah, that's how this arc starts. With a child stabbing herself in the head. Yay! To be fair, as we learnt from the first arc, these introductions don't come into play until later. But still, I needed that like I needed a hole in the head. Too soon? I'd like to take a moment to talk about the opening credits, something I neglected to do last time. I have to say, I really like the visuals for this opening sequence. They're nothing special, just the main female cast standing around, but the colours are really vibrant for each section, and the general aesthetic and composure of each shot is really nice. I like the main theme too. But it could be better. In my opinion, a good TV theme needs either something that makes it special and unique that other TV intros don't have, think Doctor Who's opening title scream or Stingray's "Stand by for action." This just doesn't have that. It also doesn't have that good of a tune that can summarise the series through music. Using my 2 previous examples, if you're doing a very basic version of the Doctor Who theme, the da-da-da-da, 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 you get that sense of adventure. But then you get the sci-fi element when you do the ooh-wee-oo, wah-hoo-hoo. With Stingray, you get the very militaristic brum-ba-dum-bum-bum, brum-ba-dum-bum-bum, as well as that brilliant 60s sci-fi pulp of the Stingray, Stingray. But with the Higurashi theme, you don't get that sense of mystery or tragedy. Just going on a little tangent here, but if you want a Higurashi theme that really summarises the show and has that really unique swing to it, the Season 2 theme is frickin' amazing. The visuals, bloody brilliant, frickin' love it. Don't want to show too much in case it spoils things. The first little chunk where it's like times reversing, that's awesome. You can see why I use it for the opening of these videos. The song itself, which name translates to Flower from Hell, which fucking great name, doesn't give the sense of mystery, but it does perfectly capture the underlying tragedy of the series. Again, not spoiling anything, we'll get there eventually. Anyway, enough about music, back to the show. So Keiichi awakes in his room before heading out to meet Rena and Mion as they cycle to the toy store for a special game for their club. The observant ones among you are probably asking yourselves, how the hell are these three alive? Two of them were beaten to a bloody pulp, and the third clawed out his own throat, and suddenly they're all a picture of health? It's almost as if nothing happened. Because nothing did! Oh, did I forget to mention, each new arc presses the reset button. Everything we saw doesn't matter. Kind of. While I'll give the show credit for not acknowledging the events of the previous arc right off the bat, it is extremely jarring to say the least, and I can see why people would be put off by it. On the other hand, it does spark the underlying mystery of the series. How exactly is everyone alive again? What does this have to do with the curse? Big questions for people who are fully invested in the characters and story. But casual viewers will see the lack of acknowledgement as lazy writing. If there was maybe a little bit more of a hint to this overarching story, the transition between these arcs would be a lot smoother to say the least. Meanwhile, Keiichi has some questions of his own.
Why are there so many kids at that toy store?
Wow. Did you even think before speaking there, K-Bud? It's lines like these that prove Keiichi is a bit dim. And before anyone blames the dub, this line was in the original sub as well. I'm not even kidding. He was canonly confused as to why there were kids at a toy store. I mean, I'd be more surprised if there weren't any kids in toy stores. What do you mean Toys R Us is closing down? Turns out today's club activity is going to be partaking in a little card game tournament that the toy store is hosting, with the winner receiving 50,000 yen. 50,000 yen? That's like a whole dollar. The contest begins.
It's time to duel!
On a long walk, even a dog gets tired.
Oh, he's so cute! I want to take him home.
I've only just noticed this in the edit, but look at Sadako's resting bitch face. She's so done. She's so done and they've only just started.
Ronald as in President Ronald Reagan.
I don't know what's weirder, that deck of cards, or the fact that this was also in the original sub. I mean, what would that card even look like? We don't even get to see it. Satoko already has it.
Satoko's gone into full-on trap mode.
Must resist making another Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference! It's too soon! Acting. Keiichi kinda sucks at the game, which is weird considering how simple it is, not helped by the fact that he's not even trying, so he enlists the help of two kids by exploiting their preteen horniness. With their help of falling on the table, and airbending apparently, Keiichi is able to tie with Mion for the final card. However, before it can be read, Mion calls off the tournament, saying she has to go to work. 1. You're a contestant, you can't do that. 2. I don't care if you've got work to go to, you should have planned ahead so this wouldn't happen. 3. Technically speaking, you've surrendered. Keiichi won. Now put on this Batman costume and submit to the penalty game. Don't ask why I have this. There's a reason we haven't seen Postman Batman in a while. To stop Keiichi being butthurt,
Somebody call the wambulance! Nobody call the wambulance!
the store manager gives him a consolation prize in the form of a doll. I don't suppose you've got anything more, you know, masculine? Well, we do have a lot of Super Sentai merch. Did someone say Super Sentai? Principal Hood, what are you doing here? making up for a joke people might not have gotten in the first episode. What? I like Super Sentai. That is the joke. Keiji gives the doll to Rena since she clearly wants it.
I don't see any point in me keeping that thing. And besides, doesn't seem like your thing either.
Yeah, so not my thing.
FYI, you should probably remember this too. It's actually a very important plot point. I am not even joking. The gang go their separate ways, with Keiichi wanting a bite to eat, so he heads to Angel Mort, where the food is sweet and the outfits are wonderfully impractical. Wait a minute, did I make this joke already? A waitress comes over to ask for his order, but Keiichi isn't thinking with his stomach anymore. As you might have noticed, the waitress appears to be Mion, which makes this next segment... well... watch.
Wait a second. I'm the customer here. She's got to do whatever I ask her to. You know, I gotta say, I'm surprised. You actually look pretty good in that outfit. But the truth is, you're actually enjoying all the attention you get dressed up like that, aren't you? I bet your mom wouldn't be too happy if she saw you dressed like that.
That's not funny!
I like how it makes you think you're seeing what you got, but then you really don't.
I feel like this goes unsaid, but you shouldn't treat anyone like this, even if they are your friend. In fact, definitely if it's your friend, because that's freaking weird! I know I said he's aware of the harem-esque situation he finds himself in, but there's a difference between teasing and sexual harassment. And this is sexual harassment. Our protagonist, ladies and gentlemen! But it's revealed that this is in fact not Mion, but her twin sister, Shion.
Well then, I should apologize.
Okay, look, he's at least realised how much of an ass he was.
I'm sorry I didn't believe you.
I retract that statement, he's still an ass. Keiichi doesn't buy the whole twin sister thing, for some reason. Am I the only one who finds that weird? Why would you lie about something like that? We cut to the next day, where we discover that Keiichi's parents are gone again. Because, as we saw last time, Keiichi knows exactly how to look after himself. Mion has to go to work again, where Keiichi mentions the waitressing thing, to which Mion insists that that is Shion. Rena doesn't seem to know who Shion is, so asks why she's never met her, which Mion struggles to answer before running for the hills. It's gotta be said, this episode alone features some of my favourite Mion moments, mostly filled up with her reactions to different things. It's reasons like this that I love animation in the first place. Arriving home, Keiichi is met by Shion, who's brought him some food. Because at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Keiichi didn't know how to make toast. Huh? How does this keep happening? Next day, back at school, the club has to be put on hold since Rika is practicing for the festival. They talk a little bit about Rika's ceremony and how she has to practice using a heavy mallet. Ah yes, little Rika, out of all the characters on this show, is definitely the one who would have dem gains.
She's gonna have to do the entire dance holding this really heavy hoe the whole time.
Oh, I didn't know your mum was taking part! We have a nice little scene where Rena basically says you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. It's a nice lesson, sure, but sometimes when someone's running at you with a knife, they're probably going to stab you. After school, Keiichi heads to Angel Mort to give Shion back the little box she brought his food in. Which I can't help but find kind of odd, considering that he thinks Mion and Shion are the same person. Why didn't he just give the box to Mion when they were at school? Maybe he went home to pick it up? It's not really important. He accidentally knocks over a couple of bikes, their owners arriving seconds later. Check these guys out. One of them has a pompadour, the other looks like he should be the one being bullied, and the last one has his hair cut into the shape of a swastika. No, wait! Remember what Rena said. You should judge a person by the opposite of how they look. I'm sure these three well-adjusted members of society are going to forgive Keiichi and let him go on his way.
You scratch my paint, you little turd.
Or maybe not. But never fear, Shion is here. And she is pissed. And she's brought back up as other townsfolk from Hinamizawa surround the bullies and scare them off. Wow, those guys came together better than the Justice League. Later, Shion explains how the townsfolk usually stick up for one another, how they treat one person's enemy as everyone's enemy, with Keiichi commenting on how much it feels like a mafia family. He also returns the lunchbox, but Shion doesn't seem to remember bringing him one, before quickly correcting herself. Then she goes and pulls this move.
It's funny. It kind of feels like we're on a date right now, doesn't it? You don't like that idea?
I'm not gonna lie, Keiichi's little speech here, reiterating the whole don't judge a book by its cover thing, is really nice. It shows that he's actually had some character growth. I also think the fact that he fumbles over his words really humanizes him. I haven't forgiven him for the sexual harassment, but this is at least a start. Just as Keiichi says Shion can drop the whole twin sister act, who should turn up? But Mion, revealing that they are indeed sisters. Again, why would you lie about something like that? Though I will give it this is a very funny scene, since Keiichi and Mion clearly feel something for each other, and Shion clearly knew how both felt and was playing them. And the best thing is, she was probably doing it for the lols. The next day at school, things are a little awkward.
Bathroom! Excuse me!
This is my favourite reaction in the whole damn arc, and it gets me every single time.
That's the 15th time she's gone to the bathroom today. I don't know why, but Mion really is acting weirder than normal. There are times in a girl's life when she can be a bit unpredictable.
Did Rika just make a period joke? Rena takes Keiichi aside, acting as the neutral party, and suggests that Keiichi forgets this whole embarrassing thing. Keiichi agrees as Rika and Satoko join them, talking about all the lessons they've learned. It's a genuinely nice scene, and one of the rare few moments in these first couple of episodes where the main cast are all together, or at least one of the few more memorable interactions between everyone. It just feels like a genuine moment, and I can fully buy these guys as friends. I'll say this now. Episode 1 of this arc is probably my singular favourite episode of the whole damn series. Probably because it feels like a contained story. It has its own beginning, middle and end, and while this is the first chapter of this arc, it could easily stand on its own. And sure, while I've taken the mick out of certain scenes and characters, there is a lot going for this episode. It has some of the best animations, some of the best voice acting, some really good pacing, and, like I said, character growth for Keiichi. The only reason I bring this up is because I feel like the rest of this arc doesn't necessarily have that, in my opinion. Episode 2 begins with Keiichi actually helping for once, and setting up the stalls for the festival. As he goes on his break, Shion brings him some tea, but he nearly calls her Mion.
Shion! I looked like an idiot the other day!
Keiichi, you are an idiot, and yes, while I may have given him credit earlier, I'm still gonna take the piss out of him. Seconds later, Mion arrives, also carrying tea, one clearly meant for Keiichi, to which Shion teases her for. It's at this point that Oishi, Jiro and Takano are reintroduced. Just as Mion tries to pull Keiichi away, Shion starts talking about the deaths and disappearances surrounding the festival. Mion leaves as Jiro and Takano begin to explain the whole thing. We covered it in the last episode, so I feel like there's no need to reiterate the whole thing. I get that this is the first time Keiichi is learning about it, but it's kinda boring to sit through again, especially if there's no new information gathered from it. Sure, it's a reminder for the viewer, you never know how long it's been since they last watched the show, and the in-universe reason for telling it is sound enough, but there's gotta be a better way to do it.
There's always one person who dies by the curse. Someone else disappears as a sacrifice.
You mean they disappear as in vanish?
Okay, I'm gonna say it. We'll eventually learn more about Keiichi and his backstory in the next arc, but I want it to be known now. He's actually a really smart guy. And we do see bits of it here and there. One of the first things we see him do is helping Rena and Mion with their math. But there are so many times where he says and does things that are unbelievably stupid. leaving the back door open when he knows people are trying to kill him, commenting on why there are so many kids at a toy store, and then here, where he has to be reassured that disappear means vanished. Or like last time, when he asked if the demons were like the ones from hell. And I'm not sure if it's a dub thing or if it was in the original text, but there's just something about it that makes him seem like he's simple or something. And having disappearance be explained for the audience doesn't make sense either. This isn't like Pokemon or Dragon Ball or Yu-Gi-Oh! Where certain subject matter was changed or explained for kids, which I'm not a fan of anyway, but that's an argument for a whole other day. Your audience isn't so dumb that it needs disappearance explained either. Hell, we already know people have disappeared because of the last arc. This is completely for Keiichi's benefit. Again, I can't speak for the visual novels, but when I read the manga, it's like he's a completely different character. He still has dumb moments, don't get me wrong, but his character feels a hell of a lot more well-rounded and, more importantly, intelligent. That's what I'm trying to get at. He is a smart guy, but lines like this just don't help his character. And to think I've already snapped on the second arc. How am I going to do 6 more of these? So yeah, curse crap is happening, moving on. It's the day of the festival, which Renner is really happy about.
Wow! Buy me one, Mom. This year's better than the last. I'll bet.
Look at that. Look at her happy little face. It's like a drop of sunshine. We have another montage of the festival showing the same images as last time, though slightly quicker, since, you know, we've already seen it. Oh, if only they could explain the curse thing that quickly. It comes time for Rika's ceremonial dance, but Shion pulls Keiichi away before he can watch it. She leads him to the Furude shrine, where they bump into Jiro and Takano, who are trying to break into where all the ceremonial tools are kept. Keiichi, somehow being the voice of reason, doesn't want anything to do with it.
Besides, Keiichi, it's something that I really want you to see.
I really want you to see all these old murder tools!
Alright, fine, I'll take a look. But if it's lame, I'm getting out of here, okay?
I would take the piss out of him, but his delivery was so nonchalant, I'm gonna let it pass. Jiro guards the door as Takano leads Shion and Keiichi inside. This is the first time we get a proper look at what Oyashiro might have looked like, and he's pretty intimidating if you ask me, even if he is missing his right hand. I bet you didn't even notice that. Look right there, you see? That was his right hand. Takano gives a better explanation as to the history of Hinamizawa and the festival, saying the people of the village have demon blood running through their veins, and that every so often it awakens and compels them to spirit people away. The cotton drifting festival was a way of preserving the flesh of the victims to eat. Obviously that's not what the festival is like now, we explained how the cotton drifting worked in the previous episode, but considering that the tool Rika uses in her ceremony was initially used to open a human stomach, you can kinda see the symbolism. Lovely.
Keiichi, the word wata means cotton and intestines.
Really? Oh yeah, you're right.
I don't know what's weirder. The fact that cotton and intestine has the same word in Japanese, or the fact that Keiichi doesn't know this even though he's Japanese himself. I'm gonna go with whichever one makes him seem more like an idiot. Takano implies that these gruesome torture devices are still used today, but practiced in secret. As they leave the shrine, Shion points out that the 4 of them are prime targets for this year's curse victims. She leaves just before the others arrive. Mion pulls Keiichi aside and asks, somewhat forebodingly, if he'd been hanging around with Shion, which Keiichi denies. Come the next day, and Mion is looking a little worse for wear, since apparently she was up all night with her family drinking.
You've got a hangover? How old are you anyway?
47. Mion asks if Keiichi saw Jiro and Takano last night, which he denies. Strangely enough, she again asks if he saw Shion, which he reminds her that she asked the previous night. Brushing it aside, she runs off, saying that she'll let them know that Keiichi didn't have anything to do with it, leaving Keiichi a little perplexed. Later, Shion asks Keiichi to meet her at the local library, where she then ditches him as soon as Oishi turns up. Oishi starts asking him exactly what he knows about Shion's family. Turns out that the Sonozake family is actually the local Yakuza group, with Mion being next in line to take over. For those who don't know, the Yakuza are basically an organised crime syndicate, the closest Western equivalent being the Mafia. There's also a series of games about the Yakuza, but I've never played them, so I can't say how true to life they are. I hear they're good, but I still haven't played them. In any case, Oishi also asks if Keiichi was hanging out with Jiro, Takano and Shion on the night of the festival, but before Keiichi can answer, Oishi is pulled away. That night, Keiichi and Shion talk over the phone, where it's revealed that Jiro and Takano have once again been claimed by the curse of Oyashiro. Shion points out the oddity that instead of one person being killed and the other disappearing, both have been killed, Takano being burned to death and Jiro once again clawing out his throat. She suspects that, following the usual curse guidelines, 2 more people will disappear, herself and Keiichi being the likely candidates. Keiichi, obviously panicked, starts shifting the blame over to Shion, since he didn't even want to go to the shrine in the first place, demanding that she takes responsibility. Without a single word to him, Shion simply hangs up the phone. Episode 3 begins at the school, where all the students are talking about the disappearance of the village leader, who went missing the previous night. Keiichi wonders if his disappearance has anything to do with the curse. It's assumed that he continues to think about this for most of the day, since we see him thinking about it later as he waters some plants. However, his train of thought is interrupted by Rika, who's a little scuffed up and crying on the floor. After helping her up, Rika asks if Keiichi did anything bad on the night of the festival. Before he can answer, Rika changes her mind and tells him to forget about it, running off. But Keiichi stops her. He really wants to confess what happened, but is worried that since she's the Shrine Maiden, she won't forgive him for breaking the village rules. Then we get this strange scene.
I heard that on the night of the festival, a kitty cat broke inside the shrine where all the ritual tools are kept.
A cat?
Yep, a kitty cat. They go meow meow like this. The cat saw what was inside and then suddenly got all scared and nervous.
Now this is clearly a metaphor for what Keiichi did, him being the cat in question. He asks what the cat should do, since the dogs, allegories from Mion and Oishi, keep asking if the cat really did do something. Rika assures him that she's going to protect the cat and that one of the dogs just misunderstood why he was there. She also tells him that the big sister cat is mad at the little sister cat, meant to be Mion and Shion respectively, ending by talking about the dog who bit the village leader, and how he should tell her if the dog goes after the cat. At least that's what I think is meant to be going on. Even after all this time, it still doesn't quite link up in my mind. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, including too much information that we discover in other arcs that might not be relevant to this situation. And while the segment might be a little heavy-handed, it does show Keiichi's intelligence that I was talking about earlier, how he caught onto the wordplay Rika was using without having to openly admit it. Also, because there hasn't been a joke in a while,
It's metaphorical!
that night, Keiichi's having a minor freakout when his dad comes a-knocking. Oh, the parents are back. I was, about to call Childline. Turns out Shion is finally willing to talk.
Is this a booty call?
Sadly not, though Keiichi does apologise for lashing out last time they called. They agreed to be truthful to one another since they're in the same boat. Shion admits that she told the village leader what happened right before he disappeared, and believes that telling him is what caused him to be caught up in the curse. Realising that he talked too, Keiichi suspects that Rika is also in danger. Even though he technically didn't admit anything, I don't think Oyashiro is one for the fine print. Keiichi tries ringing Rika's home, but no one picks up the phone. Together with Rena and Mion, they head to the house, but there's no sign of them. Oh, I just remembered what's coming next. 1 minute. Yep. And now. Alright. I like you and all, Rena, but damn, that delivery was awful! The door's locked, so Rena heads to the main house to get a spare key. Keiichi thinks an upstairs window might be open, with Mion happening upon a ladder. It's explained that the main house Ren is going off to is Rika's old house, though no one lives there since her parents passed away. Satoko also lives here too, since her parents and brother were also victims of Oyashiro's curse. And I know I've already said it, but then we get this strange scene.
That girl is cursed. I said that girl is cursed. Satoko Hojo is a cursed little girl who's been stained by Oyashiro's curse. Satoshi did everything he could to help that little sister of his, but in the end, the only thing that ever got him was erased.
What should be an incredibly intimidating and even terrifying scene is, well, left feeling kind of awkward and silly. I don't think the fault lies with the animation. It's clearly not the best we've seen so far, but this is a very awkward scene to set up to begin with. No, our problems lie elsewhere. It's a scene like this that makes me really understand how Higurashi's dub isn't considered one of the best. Mion's tone is completely off, coming across far too calm and not as hysterical as she should be. She's clearly not in the right frame of mind, practically damning Satoko to hell, but her almost hushed tones really underplays how pissed she really is. The mouth flaps are also very apparent here, but it would have been damn near impossible to match those things up. And in a surprising twist, the music is way off its game. The Higurashi soundtrack, in my humble opinion, is one of the best OSTs out there, with a great range of tracks. Hell, I've used a number of their tracks over the years. They're that good! But for some reason, they've just dropped the ball with this one. Mion, in her frantic waving, is shaking the ladder about, putting Keiichi in danger, but instead of a more tense or even mildly suspenseful track, they opt for a quieter and undefined track, one that would have worked wonders when Takano was explaining the use of the ceremonial tools in the shrine, but here it's practically unnoticeable. I feel like the idea was to have a more bombastic track, because this whole sequence is followed with Rena returning with the key and Mion acting like nothing happened. If we had had this more dramatic scene, with Mion shouting and a more heart-pounding soundtrack, the abrupt cut back to reality would have left a brilliant impact on the whole scene. While it's easy to blame the dub for this rather underwhelming scene, you can't deny that the music also detracts from the overall product. In any case, what Mion is trying to say is that she believes that Satoko is responsible, since her parent and brother have been victims of Oyashiro's curse in the past, so it only makes sense that Rika would have disappeared because of her. This doesn't really go anywhere, not in this arc at least, but I guess it's nice to have a little preview of what's to come? Finally entering the house, they discover that Rika and Satoko really are missing. The whole town starts searching for the two girls. Keiji begins to cry, feeling responsible for their disappearance. Rena, being the awesome gal that she is, comforts Keiichi, and also reveals that she knows that Keiichi broke into the shrine. Although at this point I wouldn't be surprised if he had a giant neon sign above his head saying, "I did a bad." I can't even give Rena a point for that, seeing how everyone seems to know what he did. What I can give her points for, though, is some pretty awesome deductive work she does. As they head to school the next day, Rena explains that she believes Rika left the house to get some soy sauce from the neighbour, since the little bottle on the table that they use for meals was empty, but the bigger bottle was missing. She assumes that Rika left with it and never returned. Satoko would have called the neighbour and would have been invited over for dinner, since the food she had prepared beforehand was covered in plastic wrap and put in the fridge. It's actually pretty cool and adds another layer to Rena's depth. It's great. Point well earned. Oishi rolls up and asks to talk to Keiichi. While he's no further with Jiro and Takano's case, he has some more info on the village leader. Turns out the village leader had gone to see a proctologist in one of the neighbouring cities, but his train had been delayed on the way back, so he immediately had to head to the village meeting where he was last seen. Keiichi realises that, if this is true, that Shion didn't have any time to meet with him in order to tell him that they broke into the shrine, but decides to keep this information to himself. Snapping back to reality, Oishi tells him that pretty much everyone knew the four of them had broken into the shrine by the morning after the festival, and while he should prosecute Keiichi for that alone, he's more interested in what Keiichi saw in there, since everyone else who went in there is now gone. That's right.
I thought that only 2 people were hurt that night.
I guess technically only 2 people were hurt that night. Shion Sonozaki is simply gone missing.
That night, Keiichi gets a phone call from Shion, though he doesn't believe it's her, so begins asking her for details about her meeting with the village leader. She can't give any concrete evidence of when they met and begins to cry. Keiichi says that the only time she could have met the leader is after the meeting.
Which means you know where he is, don't you?
Does that mean you did it? Does that mean you're the bad guy? Hello? The final episode begins with Rena handing Keiichi a flyer to help with Rika and Satoko's search party. She also slaps him for going into the shrine in the first place. I could watch this on repeat all day. Okay, that sounds wrong. For some reason, Rena also has a piece of paper detailing a conversation Mion had, at some point, with someone, about some soy sauce she was given, inviting them to come try it if they ever wanted to. Rena, how did you get this? I don't know. Oh, that would explain why it says plot convenience in big bold letters at the top. Yeah, God only knows where she got this information from. All Rena says is that she's had it this whole time. Otherwise, she might have just pulled it out of Keiichi's ass. And yes, I said Keiichi's ass, because that's where all the bullshit is kept. Keiichi wants to go see Mion, saying he wants to apologise. Oishi arrives, where Rena and Keiichi tell him everything they know. They overhear on the police radio that a secret squad is positioned outside Mion's house, reporting in to say that she hasn't left the premises. The police don't have an official warrant to search the place yet. Rena deduces that Oishi wants Keiichi to go in and snoop around, but secretly wants something bad to happen to him, so the police have a just reason to enter the grounds.
Well, well, well. Looks like I got myself a little Sherlock Holmes in the back seat.
Now there's a spin-off idea. It'll have 3 episodes per season, run for 4 series, and be overhyped to shit. It'll also have a garbage Christmas special. The two head to Mion's place, where Keiichi apologises, though Mion is acting very nonchalant about the whole thing, almost cocky. What's really cool is this bit where Rena and Mion have this little stare down, trying to outwit each other. Rena shows her evidence that Mion spirited away Rika and Satoko, which Mion takes surprisingly well.
Nicely done! That's it! I give up!
Yay! We win! Mion, clearly cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, reintroduces herself as Mion, and goes on to elaborate on what Takano said back in the shrine, that the people of the village are descendants of demons and have demon blood in their veins. The people of the neighbouring villages feared them and would attack them, so these, for lack of a better word, demon descendants, would band together to look after each other, much like how the townspeople came to Keiichi's aid in episode 1. She also reveals that she has a very strong connection to the demon, with her name having a Japanese character for demon in it, the me part, as well as having a tattoo.
It's okay, Mion. You don't have to show Keiichi that if you don't want to.
Very well, then.
Well, I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you want to get naked, then, you know, I'm not going to stop you. She admits to have been involved with some of the previous year's spiriting aways as well. Which is actually kind of messed up when you think about it, considering that 2 of her friends are now orphans because of her. Rena insists that Mion must have some control over her demon, otherwise Keiichi wouldn't be alive right now. To which Mion agrees. She can't understand why he's still alive either. Maybe Mion has more control than she thinks. Rena admits that Oishi and the police have the place surrounded and that she should turn herself in. What's nice is, even after everything that's happened, they still call her friend. You know, even if she did murder their other two friends. But apparently that's okay. Before she hands herself over, she asks if she can have a little time with Keiichi first. They walk around the grounds for a bit, Keiichi even letting her hold his arm. Mion admits that Shion is still alive and takes him to an underground torture room. She also mentions that Rika and Satoko's bodies have been thrown down a well where all the other dead bodies are kept. That sounds very nonchalant when you think about it. She also mentions that Rika and Satoko's bodies have been thrown down the well, you know, where we keep all the other dead bodies. Shion is locked in a prison, battered and bruised, but happy to see Keiichi again. Mion, not so much.
If you hate me so much, then just go ahead and kill me! Kill me and get it over
It's gonna be
with!
okay, Shion. I'm gonna get you out of here.
Yeah, no. Mion must be a fan of the Scorpions, because she just rocked Keiichi. Like a hurricane. Dude, people have died. People die every day. Who pooped in your cereal? Coming to, Keiichi finds himself in one of the torture devices he passed on the way in, with Mion prepared to drive nails into his hands. And it's here, right now, that we learn how this demon awoke within Mion.
All you had to do was give that doll to Mion instead, and maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't be where we are now. If you hadn't made poor little Mion cry that day, I most likely would never have woken up.
Okay, no.
And that would be you. You're the one who screwed everything up.
You're really gonna make me do this? You're really gonna make me defend Keiichi? Alright. Objection! Your Honor, my client is innocent. If you recall back to the first episode of this arc, you'll remember that Keiichi was handed the doll as a consolation prize. Rena clearly showed interest in it, while Mion laughed at it. My client was only giving the doll to the person who quite obviously wanted it. If Miss Sonozaki really wanted that doll, then she could have made her intentions more apparent. I just realised that this is the same outfit I used for the headmaster. I guess we're not doing this again. But yeah, what was Mion expecting? She didn't show any interest in the thing, but is offended that Keiichi didn't think of her? Meanwhile, you've got Rena practically drooling over the thing. It would have been more cruel to not give it to her. So as much as it pains me, Keiichi made the smarter move. Anyway, Mion is about to start hammering Keiichi.
Okay, I know that wasn't supposed to sound sexual, but
Finds herself holding back. Keiichi says he doesn't care what the demon does to him, so long as Shion is set free and forgiven, and that the demon leaves Mion's body. I'll give Keiichi this. When the moment calls for it, he can be a very selfless and brave guy. It's his best quality. Mion agrees. Only to say that the likelihood that she'll keep the promise is slim, being a demon and all, but could be tempted into setting him free since Shion is, in her own words, a lost cause, and giving Mion this body is impossible. The police begin to storm the place, forcing Mion to stun Keiichi with a taser. That she's been keeping in her breasts, apparently. Now that's what I call an obvious pun. He means booby trap. Keiichi and Shion both make it out, but they're badly hurt, with Mion nowhere to be seen. Sometime later, Keiichi and his family are preparing to leave town.
It's gonna be so lonely here. I can't believe that I'm the only one left now.
That night, Keiichi is awoken by Mion of all people outside his window. Keiichi, like an idiot, actually goes and talks to her. The last thing she said was, "If you see me, stay away." Dear God, man, do you not have any sense of self-preservation? Mion wanted to see him one last time, and then stabs him. I don't know what's stupider, the whole doll thing, or this! Mion cackles as she screams into the night that she's killed everyone she needed to kill. In a blink and you'll miss it scene, Shion is found dead, presumably being pushed off a ledge outside her apartment. And by some unbelievable miracle, Keiichi is still alive. What is even happening right now? Oishi is by his bedside, updating him on the whole case. In an interesting turn of events, Mion's dead body was found at the bottom of the well in the underground sanctum. In fact, the forensics team say that she should have died on the day when they were all in the sanctum. Naturally, the question becomes, well, who stabbed Keiichi the other night? To which Oishi asks if Keiichi remembers how Takano was found burned to a crisp in a barrel. Well, according to the autopsy, she had died 24 hours before the festival even started. So how was she there to break into the shrine if she was already meant to be dead? And if you ask me, this is actually a pretty great cliffhanger. It leaves the audience guessing and wondering what will happen in the next one, and... What?
You didn't think I'd grant you that third wish, did you? Silly boy!
Where do I even begin with this? The first arc, for all of its problems, was at least a well-structured mystery that introduces us to this world. As a follow-up to that, this arc does progress some of the more overarching story threads, the introduction of Shion, developing a little deeper into the history and traditions of Hinamizawa, developing our characters in some interesting ways, certainly some questionable ones, but the story and the mystery just isn't as good. It's too complicated in my opinion. You've got to be 100% on your game, paying attention to every little detail to even grasp some of the most basic stuff. I've watched this episode for 5 years now, and it's only on this viewing where I intentionally made notes and rewatched whole sections just to get a better grip on the whole thing. Only now do I finally understand it. And even then, I'm still a little stumped on some things. Like that whole last bit. What even was that? The whole demon aspect of Mion's personality that the final episode kind of enforces feels like it comes out of nowhere. Yeah, Takano mentions the whole demon blood thing in episode 2, but it doesn't come across as an important plot detail. And I can state for a fact that viewers forget the whole demon blood thing because we're so concerned with the disappearance of Rika and Satoko. Meaning that when Mion is prancing about saying, "Oh, I'm a demon," you go, "Wait, what? This has come out of nowhere." Because that's been my response for the past 5 years. I've already mentioned how stupid the doll thing is and its importance to the plot, waking the demon in Mion and all that. Surely there could have been a more compelling reason for all of this to happen. I've harped on enough about Keiichi and how much of an inconsistent idiot he's been. I do feel like I might have been a bit too harsh on him in some places, but hopefully you'll see my reasoning behind me getting so aggravated by him. But I still have one question. Why did we start with that scene of Rika stabbing herself in the head if it wasn't shown anywhere else or contributed to this arc? Are you telling me that I saw a child stab herself in the head for no reason? Thanks, Higurashi, I needed that image ingrained on my retina. The cotton drifting arc is kind of awkward. To start off with this really great first episode, only to be followed by 3 very mediocre, most of the time confusing episodes with an extremely rushed conclusion. I said it last time and I'll say it again here. Surely there was a scene or two that wasn't needed that could have given you more time to develop and resolve things. You know, like the sexual harassment bit. We could have used a lot less of that. Honestly, doing the retrospective on this episode has been incredibly eye-opening, particularly considering that I, well, didn't think that highly of it to begin with. And for as much as I've grumbled and groaned about it, I'd still say this arc is at least watchable, if not just for the first episode itself. Harassment scene and all. This is a very cluttered story, one that probably isn't best suited for a second outing, and I'd totally understand if this arc turned viewers away from the series. What's probably more annoying is the fact we'll actually be revisiting this story in a future arc. In an arc that I actually don't like. In the meantime, we have one more stop before we reach the big turning point of the series and this retrospective. So join me next time as we take a closer look at the tragedy that is the story of Satoko Hojo in the Curse Killing arc. A big thank you to everyone who's subscribed over the past couple of months while I've been inactive. A lot of stuff has happened this year that's pretty much demolished the schedule I had planned, and well, while it sucks, we've just got to get on with it. And an even bigger thank you to the patient people who have been subscribed from the beginning, as well as the people on the social media pages. You guys have been absolutely phenomenal putting up with all of this crap, and I cannot thank you guys enough. Because of the inactivity on this channel, I'd highly recommend ringing that bell icon so that you get a notification whenever I post a new video. Or, better yet, following us on our Facebook, Twitter, or even on Snapchat, where we post regular updates all the time. I'll try not to take as long on the next one. No promises, though. I've been Michael Crewe from Crewe on the Sofa, you already knew that. And until next time, when the Higurashi cry.